All right, boys and girls, today we're going to be reading two chapters. Chapter 24, Forget the Fear, and 25, which is called, sorry, I skipped it, I apologize. Oh gosh, Hobbit Hole. Sister Mary Frances insisted I up my riding lessons to every day after school, even though it was crazy cold. She had a boatload to teach me, and only a few short months to do it in. I hoped I could somehow get in touch with my inner cowgirl before then, so I could pull off an amazing routine that would impress everyone. Hoof-Hearted liked all the extra sugar cubes and carrots, but he was not a fan of practicing the same moves over and over again in the snow. He would sometimes stop mid-trot and shake his mane and neigh loudly when I asked him to pick up the pace. "That's it, Bernice, just like that. Now swing your left leg up and over Hoof's head. Your other left leg." My left leg, which turned out to be my right leg, didn't quite clear his ears, so instead of ending up backward on the saddle, I sort of slid off the side. Hoof ducked and stomped his feet as soon as he was freed from my weight. I lay there in the muddy snowdrift, wondering how important it was for the stunt rider to actually stay on the horse. "Try again," Sister Mary Frances barked. I think she had a past life as a drill sergeant she wasn't telling anyone about. "I might have pulled a hammy," I muttered, limping to my feet and rubbing my leg. "Suck it up, Buttercup." The old broad was hard as nails. I sighed and stuck one foot in the stirrup and swung myself onto old Hoof's back. "Let's do it again. 'Kay, horsey?" but with less falling and more spinning. He grunted, so I guessed he was up for it. I gave him a nudge, and we went from a bouncy trot to an all-out gallop. My butt was barely in the saddle anyway, but swinging my leg over his head without sliding off seemed darn near impossible. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and pretended I was spinning around on a stool, a really bouncy stool that might possibly want to kill me. I managed to kick Hoof in the side of the head, which made him jerk, which made me slide, and I found myself looking slush again. "Better. You almost cleared him that time." Should I be wearing a helmet for this? Putting myself in all this danger reminded me of my older brothers. They were always doing risky stuff for no good reason. Like the time the bug zapper on the back deck stopped working, and they decided the only way to keep our trailer bug free was to rig up a flamethrower out of a bike handlebar, a can of hairspray, and a lighter. Busey lost all the hair on his arm, and Gordon singed his eyebrows, but they got the job done. No mosquito dared to cross our trailer's door. I'd get this job done too, 'cause I'm a Buttman, and we get her done. "Helmet, I'll look into that," Aunt Josephine said, and she offered me her hand. I stood up and stretched a minute and gave my brains a good shake before I stuffed my foot into Hoof's stirrup again. If only I could make money by the bruise. Hoof took off across the field, and I tried with all my might to swing my leg over without sliding off, and I was halfway successful. Close, but not close enough. I found myself spitting out mud while a certain palomino's tail smacked me in the face. Sister Marie Frances came and sat down next to me on the ground. She squinted up at the cloud-smudged sky and let out a long sigh. "You gotta give it your all. You can't be scared. It's trying to do it slow and careful that's messing you up." I crossed my arms. "I don't feel like I'm being careful. Did you ever get close to dying, where you thought it might be the end?" I got a flash of memory, seeing my breath come out in a little puff, my fingers blue with cold. My brothers were playing hide and seek at the Walmart, and Busey had talked me into crawling inside the freezer right next to the frozen pizzas. He'd skipped off to find a better spot, and I'd gotten cold and then sleepy. Thank goodness a lady had reached to the back for a stuffed crust pizza, or I might have been worm food. I tried to focus on the fear and the memory, the frozen fear lodged in my stomach as the snot froze under my nose. I nodded numbly at Sister Marie Frances. "You gotta forget the fear, push through it, swallow it down, and get your body to do what it needs to do. Can you do that?" I had no idea what she was talking about, but I nodded and blinked at her. "Forget the fear," she whispered fiercely as she helped me into the saddle and gave Hoof's rump a slap. "Forget the fear, forget the fear." I looked down at my hands, gripping the reins so hard my knuckles were white. "Forget the fear." I relaxed my grip. I closed my eyes and focused on the beginning of my near-death memory, the part where my brothers played with me and I had an awesome hiding place. I smiled at that thought. In one quick movement, I swung my right leg around, clearing Hoof's head, and then my left leg swung around his rump. I gripped the saddle's edge and tried to find my new rhythm riding backward. Backward! It was fun for about a half a minute, and then I forgot to forget the fear, and I about peed my pants. I was riding a horse backward. Dang, my brothers would have been proud. It made me miss them like a fat kid misses cake. Okay, chapter 23, Hobbit Hole. The next day at school, my mind kept drifting back to those few amazing seconds where it was just me and Hoof's rump bouncing across the pasture backward. I was the leading lady and the stunt girl for this particular daydream and doing a bang-up job. In the dream version of yesterday's events, I didn't even fall on my face. I spun back around in the saddle and gently pulled the reins with a whoa boy, and Hoof skidded to a graceful stop. Then I pulled out my rocket launcher and aimed it at the bad guys who'd followed me across the frozen tundra. "Don't mess with America," I said before blowing them to smithereens. Boom! The class burst into nervous laughter, and I felt my cheeks go scalding hot. Not out loud. Why can't I daydream quietly? Mr. Newton glared at me. "Something you'd like to share with the class, Miss Buttman?" Sorry, sir," I mumbled, slumping down in my chair. Francie gave me a sympathetic smile. The teacher cleared his throat. "As I was saying," he paused to give me a heavy look, "now that we've finished The Hobbit, it's time to do our concluding project. You can pick any topic related to the book and write 200 words about it, then you'll present your essay to the class." Brandon, a boy who drove the teacher even more bonkers than me, raised his hand. "Yes, Brandon." "What do you mean, any topic related to the book?" "I mean, pick anything you read in The Hobbit and write 200 words about it." Brandon wasn't done. "So if I want to write 200 words on what a hobbit hole looks like, I can?" Mr. Newton nodded wearily. Other kids chimed in. "Can I write about dragons? Can I make up riddles like Schmeagol?" Mr. Newton reached for his hand sanitizer. Yes, those are all fine ideas. Just have it on my desk by next Friday." I frowned and scribbled ideas in my green notebook. The essay would be easy, fun even, but getting up in front of the class to present it, let's just say it curdled my guts. So for the next week, if I wasn't working on St. Drago's action movie night, volunteering at Halfway to Paradise, or falling off Hoof during writing lessons, I was pecking at my keyboard working on my Hobbit paper. Friday morning was presentation day. I pulled my hair into a side pony and smiled at my reflection, freckles splashing my cheeks from being out in the sun so much, and my dimples looked cute when I smiled. I didn't look scary anymore. I was losing my edge. Francie bounced up to me the second I walked in our classroom. "Did you finish your essay?" she breathed. "Yeah, I did. You?" I stayed up until 3 in the morning writing it under my covers by flashlight, but this morning I tried to read what I'd written. She held out a notebook full of blue inked words written at funny angles and messy, scrawly handwriting. I squinted at the lines, hoping to be able to help figure out what she'd written, but after a few minutes I shrugged and handed it back. "Let me see yours," she said as I unloaded the stuff from my backpack. I did not want to hand her my typed up paper after seeing the mess she was fixing to hand in, so I said I wasn't sure where I'd put it. Her eyes looked unfocused and glassy, but she nodded and plopped in her seat. The presentation started right after attendance. James Fretter's paper was about the characteristics of Bilbo Baggins and what made him a great hero. Mr. Newton beamed from his desk. The man must have been part Hobbit. Sandy Hamburg wrote her entire essay about New Zealand. Even though that was not technically in the book, it was only where the Hobbit movie was shot. Mr. Newton crunched his brow and twirled his mustache. Francie's name was called, and she swallowed so hard I could hear the spit hit the bottom of her stomach. It took her 3 tries to stand up. Her knees were shaking so bad. I gave her an encouraging nod as she headed to the front of the room. She talked for 5 whole minutes about how the Shire represented a more simplistic, less commercial life, and how hobbits were basically the opposite of humans who were always so worried about buying stuff. By the end of her speech, Mr. Newton was nodding in agreement, but when she handed him her paper, he stopped. "Oh my," he said quietly. Francie collapsed in the seat next to me and punched me in the arm. "You're next." My chest tightened like Mama trying to squeeze into last year's leggings. The thudding in my ears were louder than Chuck Norris beating a punching bag. The real Chuck Norris, not my dopey brother. I wiped my sweaty hands on my pants and waited for Mr. Newton to call my name. I decided right then I was done being scared of these kids. They could laugh at me or ignore me all they wanted. I was Bernice freaking Buttman. I'd done a great job on my assignment, and I was not going to get my underoos in a twist reading to a bunch of half-asleep fifth graders. My name was called. I took a deep breath, I walked to the front, and I smiled. If I had a magical ring, I wouldn't want to make me invisible. Too many people are already invisible because they aren't popular or rich or smart. I would want the ring to make me kind. That might not sound like much of a superpower to you, but it sometimes feels as impossible as superhuman strength or flying powers or something to me. When you're raised to only think about yourself and getting what you want, you don't turn out to be a very nice person. Nice people think of others and try to make friends. Nice people help out when they can and give people honest compliments. Yes, if I had a magical ring, I would want it to make me kind. Mr. Newton's eyes were wide behind his glasses and he snapped his mouth shut as I handed him my essay. Excellent, Bernice, he said gruffly. I sat down smiling because for once he hadn't called me Miss Buttman. That kind of made me want to cry, boys and girls. That was a great chapter. Can't wait to read tomorrow.